Okay. And so just going to go over a couple broad reminders and then kind of talk about what we're looking at for this week. This week's unit is titled Beyond the Classroom, and it does include a civic engagement assignment, which is basically a volunteer project. So I know some of you have done volunteer work recently, so you could just reflect on what you have done and create a brief presentation on it. And if you haven't done volunteer work recently, that would be within the last year, I completely understand that as well, because it's become very hard to do that because of COVID. But the project is not due until November. But since we're talking about beyond the classroom, how can we take our learning beyond the classroom? I figured I would introduce it with this week's unit. So if you started looking at things at the end of last week or at the beginning of this week and were a little confused, that might have been it. So we'll go through that today. Your grades are posted all in my courses. Remember, I won't be transferring anything over to Focus until next Tuesday. So if you don't like what you see when you check your grades here, then please complete the assignments. Talk to me about the assignments. Some of them we can replace with a conversation, but you should see your overall percentage in the top left-hand corner. And then all of the assignments that have been graded are listed here. Please remember that we are accessing our materials through course content, though. Don't just start clicking on assignments, because you might be doing something that's not due until December and missing the assignments from this week. So please make sure you use the course content area to access the current assignments. So we have motivating success is what we did last week. Motivating success included a study plan, which all of the lessons will include a study plan. That's the reading of the textbook. It's 5 points. So if for whatever, it does have some like little embedded quizzes. So if for whatever reason you didn't do this, please go back and do so. I've had a number of students ask, well, how do I know if I'm done? Well, there's 2 ways you know if you're done. Right here, it tells me 75%, 3 of the 4 topics are complete. So I know I still have 1 assignment in that unit that I haven't done. So I need to figure out what it is. I can also know that I've completed something because there's a little check mark next to it. So I have a check mark next to the motivating success. I have a check mark next to personal identity. But down here, I have a dot and it says it's overdue. So that's my red flag that I need to do one of the assignments. All of the assignments are still open. I have not closed anything. I'm not going to hold any lateness against anyone. It just, we need to get it done. And this one was, again, where you were just giving a brief definition of what success means to you. It could be a couple sentences. Some people really went above and beyond and wrote a narrative and gave examples, and it was really beautiful. But we really only need a couple sentences. If you want to give an example of someone that is successful in your eyes, that's great. So that's the 1 assignment that I'm missing. The last assignment in that unit was the quiz. So all of our units or modules start with the text reading, end with a quiz. And then there's building exercises in the middle. Okay. The quizzes are all 10 points and are set for you to take them twice. If you have some technical error and you log in and don't finish it, it's still going to time you out and submit that as a score. If that happens, please let me know. I can reset it and let you take it again. Or if you just had a really terrible day and you took it twice and still only got a 60, let's reset it. I'm happy to do that. Okay. Most of the times it gives you different questions in different order. Some of the times it doesn't, but most of the times it does. So I'm more than happy to let you have multiple attempts if you need it. Okay. But they're automatically set for you to have 2. So once I complete my definition of success, This, of course, will turn into a check mark, and I know I've then completed the assignment. Okay. So that was last week. There are still a number of people that might not even be seeing the study plan or the quiz because we haven't gone into this succeeding with Waymaker consent form. So remember, we have to go into the succeeding with Waymaker. It's the first thing under table of contents, and complete this consent and communication preferences. The textbook company is giving us the book for free, but we still need to click this little I agree and submit. That's all you have to do. Yes, it says you're indicating you're over 18, but they're not going to use our class for any of their course research because we're a dual enrollment class. So you just need to click I agree and submit. I know that seems odd, but how often do we download an app and agree to whatever their circumstances are with never reading it? So just please make sure that you have gone into succeeding with Waymaker. Again, it's the first item under the table of contents, and complete that consent form. And then the first unit that we've completed, which was last week, was the motivating success. The second unit that we're working on is beyond the classroom. And here is where the civic engagement assignment description is. So it's basically asking you to think of needs in our community and identify organizations that address those needs. I encourage you very strongly to think about where you want to go after high school. If you think you want to do something in the medical field, well, are there volunteer groups that help with the medical field? Making contacts with those groups would be great. Maybe you want to go into hospitality. Well, are there food banks that are supported by any of our hospitality groups, or our restaurants and hotels in the area? Making those contacts would be a great step to move forward. With Bright Futures, you have to do volunteer hours. And that was the whole concept behind requiring those volunteer hours, is that students would become exposed to things beyond high school that they're interested in, to decide if, hey, this is what I want to do. You know, if someone thought they wanted to be a teacher and volunteers doing reading and math lessons with middle school students, and they leave in tears every day, well, then being a teacher might not be what you want to spend the rest of your life doing. Right? So really trying to volunteer in areas that appeal to you as potential career interests. Now, that's not necessarily going to work for everybody. Right? But many major corporations around the world expect their employees to give back to the communities that they're in. For example, Habitat for Humanity. A lot of major corporations, including Raymond James, every 2 months, they help rebuild a home for somebody in a poverty-stricken area. And the employees are expected to participate as part of giving back to their communities. I had a friend that worked with Pepsi, and every year she had to create and facilitate some kind of nationwide community project. So one year it was, she did wedding gowns for breast cancer victims. So she started a collection campaign for wedding gowns for breast cancer patients. So think of something that is a need in our community. It could be a food bank. It could be a clothing donation. It could be, feeding the homeless on Saturdays. And if you're able to volunteer, then volunteer and reflect on that process. If you are not able to volunteer, then simply look up the organization. It could even be like any one of the community centers that might offer translation for families in the area, or tutoring for students. It could be anything, any kind of community organization within Pinellas County. It lists 3 different options. One is you work with a group and do a thing. Another is that you do the thing independently. And then the third is that you just research and reflect. So all three of the options include creating a presentation via PowerPoint or Powtoon, or you could even make like a public service announcement and just record yourself with your phone. But there is some kind of presentation affiliated with it. So the actual submission of that civic engagement project is not due until I think the second week of November. So let me scroll down here for a minute. December, October, September. And this is one of the major kind of expectations, because even at the college level, the expectation is that faculty and students engage in activities to support the community. Like if there's a holiday parade, there's always a representative from the college and student body there. Just like First Responders has done with the Pinellas Park Parade for years. I am having difficulty finding the box, the drop box for it. So I will locate that for us. But in the interim, I believe it is set to be due on November 5th. So by November 5th, it's, you have all of September and all of October to figure this out. It doesn't have to be a long presentation. Like if you're doing a PowerPoint, like 8 slides is sufficient. What is the need? Who is the organization? What does the organization do? Maybe some photographs. Where are they located? And how can you participate? Right? So just to kind of create some awareness about our community and the outreach programs that are available. Right? So that was the first item that you would see when you go into this week's Beyond the Classroom. Right? If you keep going back to the Beyond the Classroom and then scroll down, you again should see the study plan. That's the 5-point reading of the textbook. Then there is an assignment that says working with instructors. So it says make a list of 10 ways in which you could take advantage of communicating with your instructor to build and construct a powerful learning experience. So that's just a list of 10 things, right? Whether it's I'm going to, make sure I ask questions during class. I'm going to follow up at the end of class. I'm going to email them if I have questions. If the instructor has office hours, I will visit them during office hours. If the instructor posts messages, I will make sure I read their messages. Like all of the assignments that I've scored for you all, I've given feedback that hopefully people read and then think about. Because it does take time to do that, and that is building a conversation. So you're shooting for a list of 10 things that you can do to build successful relationships with your instructors. Okay. The second assignment is called Deep Learning, and this is where you're supposed to reflect on an experience that you've had where you learned something that you can carry beyond the brick and mortar walls of school. So it says, write a journal style reflection, 1 to 2 paragraphs of a deep learning experience. When and where did it take place? How old were you? Were you with peers? Was it in a classroom experience, or did it take place in another environment? Perhaps not a formal learning environment, right? How many times do we really learn some of our life's biggest lessons when we're with peers and we have to make decisions? Right? And then depending upon the result of the decisions, we might learn that, hey, I'm not really going to hang out with these people anymore because I make poor choices when I do. Or on the other scope, yes, I am going to hang out with these people because it turned out well. Good morning.
It's for a senior seminar, and Ms. Wilson said to send them.
Okay. Okay, will do. In just 1 second. Thank you very much. So that is the deep learning. Couple little short paragraphs. Academic honesty has become a greater problem in all aspects of education, because a lot of the times we don't even realize that we're cheating, right? So if I'm scanning my math problems and then just copying the answer off my phone, that's cheating. You're not doing the work. Now, I know when I was trying to help my son last spring with the Florida virtual class, I used some of those apps, but we didn't just copy the answer down. We looked at the steps and tried to figure out how we get from one step to the next. Right? So the learning was still happening. I'm not just copying. Right? If we copy and paste stuff off of an internet page and put it in my essay, that's not your work. Right? So this gives some examples of plagiarism and then asks for you to kind of summarize what plagiarism means to you. So a couple sentences. And then evaluating results. This is a really helpful one. I know a lot of you had some tests last week. Well, how did you do on them? Are you able to look at the test? Reflecting on what we did wrong to improve is the learning. And so if we didn't do well on a test, why? Can I go back and can I review it? I'm looking at taking the SAT on October 13th. I need to go back and look at my old scores and see the areas that I need to improve and then work on those areas, right? So this is asking you to reflect and evaluate results on a previous essay or exam and figure out how you can grow from it. And then the last thing is the quiz. Right, so I realize that there is a number of assignments, but again, none of them are really very long. They're all reflecting on how can we learn from our own experiences, and then you're just writing a short reflection. One's a list of 10 things you can do to communicate with your teachers. One's what does plagiarism mean to you? And then, of course, we have this evaluating the results. I do encourage you to also start thinking about that civic engagement assignment. Obviously, the first thing you want to do is check your grades. If you're missing things from the motivating success unit, go back to the motivating success unit, finish those, and then move forward with this week, which is beyond the classroom. And again, I understand, we're all over the place. So there's no repercussions for something being late, except that I might not get to it immediately. Right, so if you submit something today from last week, your grade might not be updated again until the end of the week. Right, so just please recognize that. I'll still give you credit for it. It's just that I can't get to it necessarily immediately. Okay. All right. So at this point, I'm going to say that you can go ahead and relocate to the table area or to the computer areas, and I will be coming around to chat with you each to see how I can